Hi everyone, this is Dr. Victoria Nalule, and here with me is King Carl, who is a book contributor in one of the edited books, which we'll be publishing very soon, focused on the African energy sector, the future and prospects of the African energy sector. So in today's discussion, we're going to talk about, sorry, I'm trying to share the slide. In today's discussion, we want to focus on climate change reporting, especially in the mining sector. But before we start on the discussion, I would like Carl to briefly introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Victoria, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. My name is King Tornam Duho. I'm a technical director for management and research consulting firm in Ghana called Data King Consulting. I've also worked with Imani Center for Policy and Education, one of the top African think tanks, where I work on economic and various financial issues for them. Previously, I've worked with the University of Ghana Business School as a research assistant, and since then, I've done a number of research. I did my master's thesis recently on anti-corruption disclosures in Africa's extractive industry, focusing on the oil and gas and the mining. And my most current work is on the climate change disclosure issues in Africa.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So before we start, I would like you to give us a brief about your book chapter on climate change disclosure in the mining sector, and then there afterwards, I'll ask you a few questions, and this will be the end of the webinar. So what exactly is your chapter about, and what should our viewers know about climate change disclosure?
Yeah, so before I start the climate change issue, there are two key things that we have to identify. Currently, as we are speaking, there are three things that are key for various development people or practitioners and policymakers globally. First is on conflict, and then the second one is on COVID, and then the third one is climate change issues. And the point is that there are concerns that we have planetary boundaries, issues about ozone layer depletion, climate change, and then there are limitations that if the exposure that we give as human beings to these issues can have effect on the sustainability of the world and the earth altogether. And so people are calling on businesses, policymakers, governments, and various stakeholders to act, to respond to the issues. So that's the first thing. And this is the beginning of the whole idea about why we should understand the concept of climate change disclosures and how firms are working on it. And the mining firms are more on the ground, in the grassroots, working in the villages. And then their work may have effect on some of these planetary boundaries. So the aim of the work is to explore the concepts from the theoretical perspective, practical perspective, and then use an empirical analysis to test what is the issue on the ground. And then what I found from the work is that currently there are various standards that are guiding how climate change issues should be disclosed. Many firms are acting, and then there are a lot of environmental concerns that, look, you, the firms you are operating, tell us how you are acting, tell us how you are responding to climate change. How are your board acting? How are your management acting? How are the board of directors? How are the managers, the CEO? What are their response to it? And there are various forces globally, nationally, and then even at the firm level, some stakeholders are coming up to address it. And then if you look at it, there are legal issues now. Currently, globally, there are 2,096 climate laws and regulations and policies globally. That's per the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change. And in Africa alone, we have 426 and then 384 in just Sub-Saharan Africa. And you see that a lot of these regulations and laws are focused more on regulatory, on executive order. So executive strategies, it's not law. So parliament is not more involved as compared to the developed world. The African context is not so much. But you see that there's a lot of power that is being concentrated on the executive, and the executive tend to be more active in doing some of these things. So with this background, the study tried to explore some of the various initiatives. We have the Global Reporting Initiative. They develop a standard on sustainability, and climate change issues are part. Climate change focusing on greenhouse gas emissions. And then there's also another standard on International Integrated Reporting Council. They also have a standard on that. There's Climate Disclosure Standards Board. They have a standard. There's Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, and there's Task Force on Climate related disclosures, financial disclosures. So you see that every time we are having increasing number of regulations. But the question is that when it is like that, how can you as a researcher be able to assess what is the current state? How can you know that these are the indicators I should use? And all of this information are needed by the stakeholders, by investors, by financial analysts, by people in the business community. And if there's no standardization, everything it will be disorganized if there's no harmonization. So you get current calls, even as currently as we are talking, the accounting regulator, which is the IFRS, they have come together trying to have a discussion paper, trying to discuss about how they can regulate the sustainability issues, which includes the climate change. And there are a lot of forces that are coming up where all of these separate regulators, standard setters that I've mentioned, are coming together to see how best they can consolidate everything that they have done so far. So at the back of this is what I used to explore the situation in the mining firms in Ghana. So based on the GRI database, which is more adopted as compared the GRI framework, which is more adopted, I explored mining firms across Africa, about 21 of them that I explore over the period 2006 to 2019, and then how they are disclosing, the extent to which they are disclosing, and then what are the factors that are driving that disclosure. And then the result that I found was that the corporate governance situation is a key determinant of how these firms are disclosing on climate change issues. And you see that the board size, the firms with larger board size tend to disclose more. And then the ones that are having board independence, where some of the board members are independent people from outside who bring expertise inside. When it happens like that, you see that most of those firms have more climate change disclosure. And then you see more of the multinational corporations tend to disclose more, sometimes because of the pressure from the head office, which is outside Africa in some cases, and then the various other factors. But you see that the larger ones are able to do that because of the cost associated with climate change disclosure. You have to come and bring people to come and do assessment. And then SMEs and smaller firms may not be able to do that. And then also you see the issue about the expertise that are needed. You need people with high expertise to be following the various issues before you'll be able to do that. And then also there is also a result of the issue about global forces. There's the United Nations Global Compact, which talk about the responsible business practices. And you see that the firms that are members of this framework, that adopt that agree with the content of it, tend to disclose more on the climate change issues. And also I try to inculcate the issue about human development and corruption inside the analysis. And I saw that the human development of the countries involved tend to enhance the disclosure, where countries that have better human development, human capital, they tend to disclose more. And that is key, because human capital is a function of the level of education and then the health of the people. And you see that the countries that are of that tend to have firms that are disclosing more. And then also the issue about corruption. You see countries that have high perception of corruption tend to also, countries that are perceived to be more corrupt tend to disclose less, but the ones that are perceived to be less corrupt tend to disclose more, which is a key issue. So these are the key issues in the work. And there are a lot of other dynamics that I explored into detail. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. So I'll have like 2 questions, unless if our attendees also have questions. So the first question relates to the issue you highlighted about corporate social responsibility, because this is similar to social license to operate, which is really gained a lot of attention in recent years, especially in mining communities. So in this respect, how do you think, or what is your opinion on the mining companies, especially large-scale mining companies, disclosing on climate change issues and how they're likely to affect the local communities, putting into mind the various initiatives these mining companies are involved in to help the communities? Because at one hand, the communities are benefiting, financially sometimes, but then we can also not ignore the negative impacts of the mining sector on these communities, including pollution, issues of the abandoned mines. So in your opinion, based on your chapter, what do you think is the best way for companies to disclose to the local communities and also to the national authorities and international authorities about the impact of their activities on the environment or on the climate in those communities? And for our attendees, if you have questions, please do raise your hand. I'll give you a chance to directly ask the question.
So thank you very much. CSR issues, CSR, which is corporate social responsibilities issues, are very key. It connects to the sustainability issues as well. And currently, the way we term it is environmental, social, and governance issues. And what happens is that you see that there is something which is being that was discussed in the chapter about greenwashing, where some of the firms are just disclosing to have a good reputation, to legitimize, knowing that, oh, we are reporting on these issues, and it shows that we are committed. But the core issue that the chapter drive at is that the various managers, the various boards, and the various workers in the various mining companies should be committed to responsible business practices. We are changing from an environment where we are focusing on shareholder profit maximization to a broader stakeholder profit maximization. So in the past, you see that firms are interested in driving the value of their shareholders. And even if the environment is being affected, they don't care. Even if the people in the community are being affected, they don't care. But we are moving away from there, where investors are calling for firms to be responsible. Before they invest, they want them to be responsible. And firms that are not being responsible will be penalized by the stock market or by the investor community. And this is the drive that is being pushed. Because of that, it is key for the African mining boards, the various CEOs, the chief finance officer, the various reporting, every individual and organization should be committed to actually driving the reduction in the climate change, contributing to the climate change goal that we have, instead of just greenwashing, which is just doing it in a pretentious way, but not actually achieving the goal. So we see that from the result shows that the board is key, and independent board members come with different expertise. Some of them could be climate change experts. So they come in with the expertise and they drive what are the current issues, what are the best practices, how can these firms do it? And it is key for them to inculcate it inside.
All right, and then the next question relates to the differences between the local companies and the international mining companies. Because in most cases, some of these mining companies, they have like high standards, though sometimes they don't apply the same standards in developing countries. But we see that, for instance, when you look at the local mining companies who are involved, let's say in small scale mining, they would not have the capacity to disclose as much as the large-scale mining companies. So how do you think we can bridge the gap with respect to climate change disclosure issues between large-scale mining companies and small-scale or local mining companies?
Yeah, so one of the key things is that size tends to be very key, as you highlighted. Size in the work, you see that the firms that are larger tend to disclose more, because disclosure comes with cost implications. It comes with you having the expertise. It comes with you having the various resources, and even putting it out there would have implications. You see some of these small scale mining firms, they don't even have a website, and getting the information out will be maybe difficult in those cases. But the point is that because there is a drive, we are all needed to be involved in the drive to reduce the climate crisis, and then the impact of if we don't act now. And because of that, it is very key that even the small scale mining firms, the one that may not even have the resources, they should be able to, in their various decisions, be able to embed what is their climate footprint, what is their emission, what are their decisions, the resources they are buying, how efficient are they, how are they able to reduce it. This should be key, because when you are a small scale mining firm today, tomorrow you may need an investor to invest in your business. And if that investor is a climate responsible investor, that investor may not be able to invest in you. And you want to position yourself at all times to be able to reach out and then get the various people that you need to have on board. So it's very key for all to act. That's one of the key things that is being highlighted. That was highlighted in the way.
All right. Do we have any questions from the participants? I don't think no one is responding. But the last question will be, what are the key issues for African countries with respect to climate change disclosure? And I would like you to answer this in two parts. What should African countries do to ensure that all companies disclose what needs to be disclosed? And then also, how can they effectively use the information to tackle the challenges we're experiencing right now with respect to climate change? So those will be my last questions, and then we shall end the webinar.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing is that Africa itself is not a high net climate change contributor. We see the developed world tend to be, but because of the impact of the mining sector, that's why it is very key. So for the mining firms, they should be very key in doing that. But what is happening is that from the issue about the laws on climate change and the regulations, you see that currently most of these regulations are strategies and national policies. So it's Ghana national policy on climate change, South Africa policy, or they inculcate it in the corporate governance framework that firms should be responsible, which is a bit generic. But where countries should be going they should be getting to the extent where they are able to inculcate some of these issues. Even the politicians in their manifestos should be able to inculcate how they'll be able to address climate change issues. And you see in recent elections where manifestos were provided, most of these African countries were not able to point out some of these things. And if they're able to do that, that will reflect in the policies more. And then also the parliament and the legislature will be able to pick it up and then make it a law. That's where the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agencies, will be able to pick it up and be able to sanction the firms. But the point is that the future we have will be where various actors will be pushing, CSOs will be pushing, and then various actors will be pushing. So firms have to act, and then the governments and our politicians have to act. We have the African Mining Vision and various documents. All of those things have to. They are a bit broad, but we need to be more specific on all of those issues.
Okay, and then we see Abdul is asking, are there any challenges in measuring climate change empirically? And then any issues on data accessibility or availability?
Yeah, so for Africa, that data is a key issue. We keep having challenges with that. So data availability is very key. And for even the firms, being able to report on this climate change, you have to do computations. You have to bring people, what's your greenhouse gas emissions? What are the predictions? What are the simulations and all of that? So the data issue comes, and then even the expertise for you to be able to handle that data and see the actual trend over time is very key. And what it means is that more has to be done, including even the research community has to do more around these issues.
All right, thank you very much, Carl. I think this marks the end of our webinar, but before we close, I would like you to just use like 2 minutes to highlight the key issues for policymakers and companies with respect to climate change disclosure in the mining sector.
Yeah, so for the African Union, and then the various discussions about the Africa Free Trade, there's the need for us to be concerned about the mining sector of Africa, and knowing its contribution. It has a reserve about 30%. There's the key for the various actors to come on board. So we need action from government. We need action from the CSOs and the think tanks. We also need action from academia. We need action from the business community. And for the national standard sectors, if you come to the various regulatory bodies and then the various professional bodies, all of them have to inculcate some of these issues in them. And specifically for this work, which focus on the disclosure, the Africa's standard setting and the various contribution to if these disclosure issues, they tend to focus on the outside world, they tend to focus on the Western world, but there's the need for the various policies to come on board, to policymakers to come on board to make the key contribution. So key focus, corporate governance, enhance the human development, enhance the human capital development, ensure to reduce corruption, because you see corruption is still is very key. And then we have to be able to bridge that gap where only larger firms they tend to disclose more. The smaller ones should also be able, and that comes with awareness. It comes with policy initiatives. It comes with the laws and the regulations. Then the various practitioner workshops, discussions on these things, or it has to inculcate. Last time I was in a meeting with the African Development Bank on the mining sector, and having those issues coming in is very key, because these are the people that form some of the documents, that form some of the policies, and then they drive the various actions.
All right, thank you very much for the brilliant presentation, and we are looking forward to publishing your chapter. So all our viewers on YouTube or people who watch the video afterwards, look out for Carl's book chapter on climate change disclosure in the mining sector. I know that not many people have written about this, so it will be a very interesting piece to read. This marks the end of our webinar. Have a lovely weekend. It's a weekend, but you can see we are trying our best to record all the videos for the book project where we'll be publishing very soon. So have a lovely weekend and take care. Again, Carl, thank you very much for your brilliant presentation, and take care also.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.